On 5 News, we're at Westminster on the last day of campaigning for a vote that will decide Britain's future. A last pitch as the big guns make their final pleas to voters, and 5 News goes with them.
Go out and vote Remain. Go out and vote Remain for a bigger, better Britain inside a reformed European Union.
There's a great chance now for our country to take back control of things that are really important to us, and particularly our democracy.
After weeks of speeches, dozens of debates, time has almost run out for the politicians. Now it's your time to decide.
I've spent the day on a cross-channel ferry finding out whether passengers here are going to vote for a return ticket to Europe or a one-way ticket to leave.
And what about our EU neighbours? I'm here on the continent to find out how they view the referendum. Do they want us to stay or go?
How will the UK vote? We'll have the predictions on both sides. Also this evening, celebrating the life of Jo Cox. Her husband and children lead the tributes on what would have been her 42nd birthday.
If my accuser wanted to damage me, he did it. I don't think I'll ever be quite the same again.
Cliff Richard speaks out over the abuse allegations that he says almost ruined his life. And it's going to be another muddy one as heavy rain causes travel chaos at Glastonbury. Hello and welcome to 5 News. I'm Sian Williams, live in Westminster for this special programme. And this is it, the final day of campaigning for your vote. We've heard weeks of arguments from the politicians here. It has been fierce, it's been impassioned, it's been acrimonious, and it's even been enlightening. But in a matter of hours, they take a step back and you make the decision. Perhaps the biggest of our lifetime. Should we remain in the European Union or leave? Well, today, both sides have been out and about trying to win over those key undecided voters, and 5 News has been speaking to the leaders of both camps in what could be the most important day of the entire campaign. In a moment, we'll be hearing from the Prime Minister, who's hoping to keep Britain in the EU. First, though, Catherine Jones joined Boris Johnson as he, for the last time, argues why we should vote leave.
Look at this.
Boris Johnson visiting the offices of the local paper in Wolverhampton, where he worked as a junior reporter almost 30 years ago.
Look at that, that is extraordinary.
The Express and Star ran an article by him this week, making the case, as he so often has, for Britain to exit the EU.
There's a great chance now for our country to take back control of things that are really important to us, and particularly our democracy. Yes, it's about money, a bit, quite a lot of money we could get back. It's about immigration control, a bit, that would be very important. But basically it's about how you run your country and who's in charge of it.
Boris is making the most of the final hours of campaigning. Until 10 last night he was on live TV, yet by 5:30 he was up to visit Billingsgate Fish Market in London. After a photo call in Essex, he headed north to Leicestershire for a walkabout before his lunchtime stopover in Wolverhampton, where people in the city centre are still as divided as the opinion polls suggest.
You know what you've got just now. You're going into the unknown if you vote come out, I would say.
I think things will be better out than in.
I don't think it would be in the UK's best interest to go it alone, not in the sort of world we're living in today. We all need each other.
I think it's time to come out to stop all this. We need borders, we need control, and we need Cameron to go away.
If people vote leave because they hate Cameron, they just have a feeling, does that matter?
I don't think that is the reason people are voting. None of those are the reasons, I hope. That
they will be for some people.
Well, the people I've been talking to and the people that we're trying to appeal to are people who basically think that democracy is a good thing.
So it does matter what motivates people to vote?
I want people to vote for a positive programme that we're setting out, which is to take back control of huge sums of money, of our borders, and basically of our democracy.
To Sharon. Boris is the big political hitter who has given the Leave campaign its momentum. If the UK does vote to leave the European Union tomorrow, it will be in large measure down to the promises that this man has made. Catherine Jones, 5 News, Wolverhampton.
It's the start of the day in Bristol, and David Cameron's brought along some friends, a former Labour deputy leader and a former Prime Minister, whose time in office was virtually wrecked by rows about Europe. But they're all here to back his message.
Stronger, safer, better off. A day to go. Let's do it. Thank you very much.
David Cameron has the support of people here, but to convince anyone out there still undecided, he has just a few hours left. On the bus, we spoke to David Cameron. First, Michael Gove for the Leave campaign compared pro-Remain experts to German scientists doing the Nazis' bidding. He did apologise later. But what did the Prime Minister make of it?
I think the overwhelming weight of opinion of business and entrepreneurs and job creators and then economists and independent institutions to somehow compare these to, what is it today we're told, being compared to Nazi sympathisers or something. It's nuts, absolutely nuts. We should listen to experts about the good of our economy.
Nervous?
You're always nervous in any election, and this is obviously a huge issue, much bigger than a general election. People aren't voting on this government's future or that government's future. They're voting on this. They're voting on Britain Stronger in Europe. They're voting on a really profound question about the future of our country. And I hope people today will, they'll go home and they'll look at their children and think of their grandchildren, and they'll think, what sort of country and world do we want for them, and where will opportunities be greater? Because we will live this, people of my age will live with this decision for a few decades, but these people will live with this decision for their lifetime.
But some are still making up their minds.
I can see benefits on both sides, even up to this very late stage.
Can you imagine getting in the polling booth and making your mind up there and then?
I'll make my mind up before I go in. I think I won't leave it that late.
I think we ought to stand on our own 2 feet. I think we're governed by an awful lot of people. There are a few people that have their say, but I don't think sometimes they listen.
In.
Why?
I suppose a couple of reasons. I prefer the campaign and the manner they went about it. I think you have more of a say if you have a seat at the table in the EU. I think leaving is a mistake.
It's more than 3 years since he announced we would have this referendum. Now, after 10 weeks of official campaigning, countless speeches, rallies and debates, we are just hours away from the voters having the final say.
Well, Andy Bell is with me. It certainly felt like a long haul at times, hasn't it? This last-minute frenetic campaigning by both sides, how much difference do you think it can make?
Well, it's certainly partly about getting people to make up their minds, but I think at this stage it's actually more about getting those people who say, OK, I've basically decided which way I want to go, making sure that those people actually get out and vote. That's where a lot of the effort is going now. And one more point, we should remember that a lot of people have already voted by post, and anecdotally we're hearing that the turnout for postal ballots is up. And I've been struck during this campaign when I've spoken to quite a number of people who say, I haven't voted in the general election for years, but I'm going to vote this time round. I think that could push turnout right up, and it could make this result even more unpredictable.
We'll see you by Friday. Thank you, Andy. Well, we know opinion here is split. What do other European countries think the UK should do, though? Well, one survey showed that on the whole, they generally hope we stay. But the country most in favour of Britain leaving was France. Peter Lane has been out in Toulouse to gauge the feeling there.
Sun-kissed southern France, far away from the heat of the referendum countdown back home, but watching and waiting like the rest of Europe. The vote is front-page news here, and just as we found in the UK, it's viewed from many angles. At his newsstand in Toulouse, Christian sees potential benefit in Brexit.
If they want to go, they can go. It will be better for us, maybe for them.
But at her counter in the local market, Charlotte can't see how local life will change either way.
It's going to have an impact for the Europe, I think, in a few years. But for me, it doesn't matter. It's not going to change anything. So right now, no problem.
And Joanna, who promotes the arts festival here, is convinced the UK must stay.
The UK is different. It's an island, but it's the mixture of all those different cultures that works. And if we keep it united, we will have a vision of the future which will be stronger than if we keep it separated.
The UK may be physically removed from the continent, but what's the appetite here for further separation? So, taking a tour round Europe, how keen are our EU neighbours to keep us in the family? Well, the coldest shoulder comes from here in France. Only 41% of people think the UK should remain. The Spanish are the keenest at 64%. In Italy, it's 55%, and in Germany, 54%. Today, German Chancellor Angela Merkel repeated her call for a Remain vote, but said the EU would respect the outcome. She said, "Of course I want Britain to stay, but the decision is with the British citizens." Tonight, here in France and across the continent, all they can do is wait to see if the UK does walk away, and how that might affect the EU it leaves behind.
And Peter, Britain divided over how to vote, and Europe divided over whether it wants us to stay.
Well, some within Europe see Britain as a troublemaker and think the EU would be better off without it. Others argue that Britain helps keep the EU in check. There are voices from within the likes of France, Germany and Italy now saying that they should perhaps follow Britain's lead and have their own referendums, but European leaders urge against that. And today here in France, President Hollande said this vote isn't just about the future of the United Kingdom, it's about the future of the whole European Union.
Peter, thank you. Well, as an island nation, the thing that separates us from mainland Europe, of course, is the Channel. Minnie Stevenson is on a ferry that's currently taking people across from Dover to Calais. Minnie.
Well, Sian, it's certainly a first for me. You join me live from across Channel Ferry, and as you can see, we've got the iconic white cliffs of Dover behind me. Now, we've spent all day on board talking to passengers travelling from Dover to Calais and back. It's, of course, a route used by millions of holidaymakers each year. Now, just 21 miles across the water, but it'll be an entirely different journey if Britain decides to leave the EU. Now, later on the programme, I'll be talking to passengers about that all-important decision and their next destination, whether they decide to stay or go.
See you later, Minnie. Also coming up on the programme, remembering Jo Cox on what would have been her 42nd birthday. And Cliff Richard calls for a change in the law after the abuse allegations he says nearly drove him to breaking point. All that and more after the break. Hello and welcome back to this 5 News special live from Westminster. We'll be talking about the referendum campaign, but it was overshadowed by the shocking killing of the MP Jo Cox. Today would have been her 42nd birthday. And to mark the occasion, ceremonies are being held to celebrate her life. Among them, a gathering in her home constituency of Batley and Spen, and events too in London, attended by her husband Brendan and their 2 young children. Dominic Reynolds reports.
They lived on this barge together. But today, Jo Cox's husband and her children sailed upriver without her. Beside Brendan, 5-year-old Coolin and 3-year-old Layla. They docked where she worked at Westminster. They would have been celebrating Jo's 42nd birthday today. Instead, they're celebrating her life. But they're not doing it alone.
She was a mountain climber, a runner, a cyclist, an avid reader, an awful cook, a swimmer, a great exaggerator, a wild food forager, a middle lane driver, a log carrier, a ball of energy and determination, and above all else, she was a mum. She was the best mum. She was the best mum that any child could wish for. And wish we do, to have her back in our lives.
And after that, the silence. In Batley, her constituency, the same scene.
My sister would want her murder to mobilise people, to get on with things, to try to make a positive difference in whatever way we can.
Over £1 million has been raised in Jo Cox's name in 3 days. Today at these events are bright lights shining on the causes she cared about. This was a person, her husband said, who met the world with love. Dominic Reynolds, 5 News.
Sir Cliff Richard says that suspects in sexual abuse cases should be allowed to remain anonymous until they're charged. He's given his first television interview since being told he won't face charges on historical allegations. The singer said he felt his reputation had been tarnished and he may never feel the same again. Julian Drucker reports.
I have never, ever molested a boy, a girl, or man, or woman. Never, ever, never would, never could.
From the day of this police raid on his apartment nearly 2 years ago, Sir Cliff Richard waited to hear if he'd be charged following allegations of historical sexual abuse. Last week, the Crown Prosecution Service said there was insufficient evidence to proceed. In his first TV interview since that announcement, Sir Cliff condemned the CPS for the language they used.
The terminology is insufficient evidence. Well, insufficient evidence, my backside. If you can't have evidence for something that didn't happen.
Sir Cliff has accused police and the BBC of what he called illegal collusion after the raid was broadcast live on TV. Both parties have apologised, but the singer suggested he will now take legal action.
I'm angry with the South Yorkshire Police. I feel confused and angry with the BBC. I'm confused. How the heck, why was a helicopter there, and why was the BBC allowed to film what should have been a private investigation?
9 men accused Sir Cliff of abuse. One claimed it took place during the making of this video in Milton Keynes in 1981.
If they wanted to damage me, if my accuser wanted to damage me, you did it. I don't think I'll ever be quite the same again.
The Star says sex abuse suspects should remain anonymous until charged, but campaigners disagree.
The most important thing is not the reputation of the celebrity or the non-celebrity, whoever it is. What is most important is the protection of children.
His 2-year ordeal is over, but the 75-year-old says his reputation has been tarnished. Julian Drucker, 5 News.
People going to the Glastonbury Festival have been asked to hold off from travelling there because of severe congestion. Campers who've arrived had to wait up to 12 hours. Once they got there, they encountered very muddy conditions underfoot after persistent heavy rain, and more wet weather is being forecast for later. Let's take you back to our main story in the final day of campaigning for your vote in the European referendum. If it seems like it's gone on forever, time's running out now, and by tomorrow night the decision will have been made. Most people's minds are made up, but many are still unsure about which way they're going to vote. Let's go live now to Minnie Stevenson, who's on a cross-channel ferry that's on its way to Calais. Minnie.
Hi Sean, welcome back to the ferry where I've been talking to Brits all day who are about to start their holidays in Europe, but firmly in the back of their minds is that big vote back home when the course of history could of course be changed forever. But which way will they vote? From Dover to Calais, a journey along the English Channel steeped in history. But if the UK leaves the EU, it could be a very different journey altogether. We are about to embark on a day trip of our own. With the vote upon us, we've been finding out which way the tide is turning for these passengers, in or out. Ahmed is off on a boys' holiday to watch the Euros, and I'm gate crashing. He told me he thinks the right road to take is remain.
I'm going to go with staying.
And why is that?
Because I just think there's a lot more certainty to it, there are a lot more concrete facts.
And is staying in the EU or leaving the EU the talk of your boys' holiday? Has it come up at all?
No.
Okay. But on the deck of the ferry, Sean, also a football fan on his way to France, is very much on the team to leave.
I'd say go out, try out, see how it goes.
But you can't go back from that. Would you be worried about that?
Well, not particularly.
Last year, people from the UK visited a European country 52 million times. Take couple Sarah and Oliver. They regularly holiday on the continent and are voting to stay.
To carry on sort of building the bond with other European countries and learning languages rather than England or UK becoming more sort of isolated.
Now to defer to the soft play area, Pirate Island, where the future of our islands are being pondered. The McSweeney family may be on their way to France for a holiday, but their dad Joe thinks the UK should leave Europe for good. So Joe, taking the kids on holiday? Is it exciting at the moment, or is it getting stressful yet?
We're getting there.
You wait. So which way would you like the vote to go?
I hope England or Britain leaves.
And why is that?
I just see the European Union as being some sort of super state.
As we turn back to these shores with passengers here clear on their destination, whichever path you take and whatever you decide, a new journey will begin. Minnie Stevenson, 5 News from the English Channel.
Well, back here at Westminster, Matt's joined us to tell us what's coming up on 5 News tonight. Hello there.
Hi, Sean. Can't blame some of those people from wanting to get away from it all, but we are debating it right up to the wire at 6:30. In or out, a 5 News Tonight referendum special is coming up. We'll have campaigners, MPs, commentators from both sides of the debate, and perhaps you're a bit unsure about which way you want to vote. Perhaps you've made up your mind. We'd like to hear from you if you have, especially if there was one issue that helps you focus which way you're going to put your cross tomorrow. Get in touch via Facebook. I'll see you at 6:30.
Look forward to that. Thanks, Matt. So, you've been hearing about what all the experts and the politicians think. Now, all that matters is what you think. Is Britain better off inside or outside the European Union? It's perhaps the biggest decision the UK will ever take. And tomorrow, from 7 o'clock in the morning, the polls will be open for you to make your choice. For now, though, from this special programme live from Westminster, thanks very much for watching. Goodbye for now.